The Bloodstone Chronicles, Book 1, A Darker Sun, by David Inkling. Chapter 13. Death. You come right by me. That's what the boy says, and although she isn't totally sure what he means, when he turns around and disappears into the trees, she steps towards him. The dog that is next to him follows, and even though his master is clearly younger than either Ned or Eleisa, they feel as though they should do as he says, and so they do. Just above them, out of sight, the Moonmoths drift gently along and follow. A little way into the trees, there is a clearing where the ground is a carpet of pine needles and dropped cones. Here they settle and see something lying on the ground, covered in a waxed sheet and groaning as if in pain. Sit, the boy says. Ned immediately bends to squat down so that the young boy laughs. He pauses and looks at Ned, who freezes and is caught half squatting, half sitting. Not you, the boy says. Me dog, Toad. Sit, Toad, he says. Toad is a short, squat dog with very short hair and a squashed nose who huffs and puffs, sniffing his way around to make sense of the world. He tends to waddle rather than walk. What kind of dog is he? Ned asks doubtfully. The boy says, I ain't really sure. Certainly not a good sheepdog. Useless thing. He'd be scared witless on much but a rabbit. Even if he do get a good bark up at times. And when he gets to moving quickly, he'd be galloping quicker than any sheep. I found him on the heath one night. Well, he found me. Come right up and took a sausage from me plate. And then he sort of stuck around. He's a half good guard dog. Only half? Ellie asks, confused. Well, he'd be deaf in one ear, so he don't hear too good on things coming up from his left. Otherwise, he'll let you know good and proper when some sneaky fox is about to take a lamb or take a fancy to your chicken. The boy carries on speaking casually, his words a constant stream, and then without a breath, he nods towards the body lying on the ground. But to the business here, I done found this'n lying on the heath, shivin' fit to bust, and my dar brought him down here. Dar has only just now gone off to trick-think the nasty rider and lead him away from here. So you'll be looking like safe for a moment, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Eleisa says. It seems the polite thing to do. Yes, me too, thank you very much, Ned says, unsure what to say to avoid another embarrassing moment. They both look at the boy and then at Toad, who sniffs and sits on his haunches, looking from one to the other. So what be up with this'n then? The boy asks, pulling back the wax sheet. Toad steps towards him and sniffs the reclining figure and growls slightly. Enough of that. He'd be a friend, the boy says. On the floor lies a boy with a very familiar, if confused-looking face. It is Tom. Oh, thank goodness, Eleisa cries. He is lying on the ground, breathing irregularly and sweating as if he's been shot or injured with a blade of some sort, but they can see no wounds. He groans as if he's seen them, but when he tries to talk, his breath is laboured with inaudible groaning. He soon gives up and falls back exhausted. At this point, the Moonmoths drift down and approach Tom. They circle his head warily, but stay a little more than swatting distance away. He is unaware of their interest in him, so makes no resistance to their presence, and they move closer until gently, and without Tom's knowledge, they settle and rest on his head. They have the appearance of two fancy ribbons tied in bows. Ooh, you have some mooners with you. Very pretty too, the boy says. They will help him calm, and he may sleep a while. And just as the boy says, Tom settles and becomes quiet. His breath eases to a purr. The Moonmoths, their wings folded flat, begin to glow and work the magic of their own light. They move closer together and seem to be communicating. Their long, feeling antennae engage in some kind of shared tactile action, and the defined probes at the front of their heads curl and uncurl. Suddenly, they start to turn and move in circles, almost as if they're dancing. Toad gives an appreciative sniff and a short, happy whimper of delight. They watch the moths, fascinated by the display, until the boy speaks. "He didn't do no speaking when we found him, but he could see he be in a pretty bad way," he says. "Me da says it be Tom Briar from up the Greendale Hills. He do live with his own uncle. Be that truth?" Ned and Ellie look at each other. This strange but confident young man's words are spoken plainly and with little emotion, and he is quite disarming. There is nothing revealed in what he says, but also nothing hidden. The boy's father seems to know all about Tom anyway, so there is no point in denying it. "That's right. And who might you be?" Eleisa asks. "Sorry, I'm Ellie, and this is Ned. What's your name?" "Oh, me? I be Josh. And my da, he be a herder for some sheep. He be clept Heath, or Mr. Drayton fancy ones. And me ma be Millie, but some other fine folks do call her Millicent. Now, tell me what this here Tom's problem be, and I will see if there be any fixing for it." "We just need to get him to the pool as soon as possible," Eleisa says. "Peasy," Josh says, then pauses and looks down at Tom. "He be a big un, but probably no more than a normal ram, so it should do." After telling Toad to stay, Josh disappears at this point and returns a few moments later with 2 poles. He passes the poles through the long edges of the large waxed cloth, where there are 2 wide hems stitched down its sides. It is almost triangular, so the poles come together and meet about a body's width apart at the point. Then he lays this flat on the ground. "Now we roll," Josh says. The Moonmoths see him approach and fly up into the air. Josh then rolls, which means he proceeds to shove, push, and pull the dead weight of Tom onto the wax cloth. Tom groans and complains at times, but he's more at ease than he has been. As soon as Ned and Ellie see the sense in what is happening, they help. But it is hard work. "Not quite like rolling a sheep," Josh says, brushing dirt and some of the pine needles from his hands. "But it be done. Peasy as pith." He stops himself when he sees Ellie's eyes widen, and she smiles. "Peasy is picking a daisy, my grandma says. Used to say." She says. "Oh aye, that be a good one too," Josh says, and grins. With Tom fairly safe lying in the middle of the sheet, the Moonmoths settle once more and resume their dance. Ned and Josh each lift a pole, and they drag the whole thing along. It takes a little while to negotiate the trees and pull the makeshift sled along, but they soon arrive back at the pool. "At last," Eleisa says. It is clearer now, and the skies are open so the heavens can look down. A few brighter stars shimmer from the depths of space, and the moon, although lower in the sky, shines a full, round face down on them. "There be a smiley one mooning for you," Josh says, cheered by its light. Toad stands and walks down to the pool where he laps briefly, then returns and sits by Josh's feet. "Do you have the call?" Eleisa says, and opens her hand to Ned. He takes it from his coat pocket and passes it over. She steps close to the lake and holds it out in her hands, lifting it a little. As soon as the light from the moon kisses the surface of the box, it shines delicately. Eleisa opens the lid, removes the Bloodstone, and drops the box back into her own pocket. Then she holds the stone up and waits. Just a glimmer of light, she thinks. Just a little something. She thinks of Tom, thinks of the red stone he'd given her and she'd thrown so carelessly into the pool of black water. "Something's supposed to happen, is it?" Josh says. And Toad sniffs twice. "Shh," Ned hisses. "You'll put her off." "What if she taps it 3 times? My dad does that with his pipe, and it always unblocks." Eleisa ignores him and begins to mouth a prayer. Her words quietly bubble like a stream. Nothing happens. She tries all the prayers she knows, but the stone in her hand stays dull and grey. The thought of throwing Grandma's stone into the water fills her mind. Dread crawls through her like a chill. She begins to tremble as if she might cry. She thinks of how Tom has so quickly given the red stone to her, how easily he'd given it up. But he hadn't known what he was doing, her mind says. He threw away nothing of value. This is the last thing you have of Grandma's. Why would you give it up? Keep it. If you throw it away, you'll forget how precious Grandma was to you. Why would you waste such a precious memory, such a stone on your friend? Is he really worth it? Her mind races with each nervous thought. "I don't want to use it," she says suddenly, and lowers her hands. "I can't." Toad waddles over to her and sniffs her feet, then nuzzles her with his squat face. "But we must," Ned says. "You must use it or we won't find Tom's stone. Please, Ellie." She turns back. Toad sits and looks out at the water, then gives an encouraging little bark. Once, then again, and then a third time. It is then that the surface breaks. There is a gentle blip or a blop as something rises. "Look," Josh calls out with excitement. "It done good and work. Look there. It'd be a fish, and a great fat fish too. Look at the fins on him." Toad barks again, happily and a little louder. Maester Brown rises to the surface, floats and drifts. His fins, though large enough to impress Josh, barely move. His purple colour has all but gone. He is mostly grey now, like ash, and he rolls over as if there is barely any life in him. On his sides, the scales have turned a sickly yellow and seem to flake. He flaps a dorsal fin feebly, and the water barely moves. "Oh no," Ned says. "He's sick too." Eleisa holds her hands up once more, and 2 great tears roll slowly down her cheeks. Her lips move as if they would utter new words, but the sounds will not come. She trembles, and a chill passes over them all. Her eyes close. As she shivers, still she holds her hands aloft, and the moon shines down on the tears. They reflect the light as beautifully as any precious jewels. The Moonmoths now rise up. They leave Tom. They flap their wings softly and drift in circles around Elisa's head. They glow magnificently, and quickly the tears dry, and with barely a few more flaps, they move off to the grey dull surface of her grandmother's stone, where they settle. Now, instead of laying their wings flat, they face each other and circle feverishly, dancing vigorously. Their wings beat faster and faster into a blur that is so powerful they vibrate and hum, then sing out and form a single ball of light. "Whoa," Josh whispers. his eyes widening. Toad stands nearby, sniffing with excitement, and his bottom shakes. He only has a short stump of a tail, but if it were longer, it would wag joyously. Abruptly, the ball of moths rises, circles and vibrates, still forming a spherical shape that glows and hums. Quite suddenly, the ball of light shoots off into the sky, as if Ellie has thrown it. In the centre of the black water, the mothball lands with a plop and disappears below the surface. At the edge of the pool, the eyes of the three children stare. Their mouths open in wonder, and their hearts beat. Deep under the water, a new light appears, reddish and shimmering. The water bubbles slightly, as if it is a shoal of tiny fish feeding. But as they look, they see it is the moths who have returned to mark the place. They're vibrating in red as they stir up the water. "It must be there," Ned says, leaning out. Ellie does not need to be told. Pocketing the grey stone, she throws off her coat and does not turn back. There is a clean plunk as she enters the water smoothly, and after a moment's silence, she surfaces and takes easy strokes out into the centre of the pool. She is nearly out of breath when she reaches the red light, but she pauses, treads the water below the moths, and takes great gulps of air. The red glimmering ball of light moves around her and sinks down into the depths. Looking down, she watches its glimmer sink lower and lower. Then, taking one final gulp of air, she dives. For Ned and Josh on the side of the pool, it is a long time. They hold their own breaths in anticipation and are soon in need of air. Ned opens his mouth with a gasp, and Toad gives a brief yelp. "It's too long. It's too long," he says. A gentle breath of wind ripples the surface of the water. "How deep do you think she be down?" Josh says. "Too deep." Time shifts. They look intently onto the surface for any movement, any sign, but are suddenly distracted when Tom howls as if he has been struck by a great sharp pain that folds him in half and makes him kick out. Toad barks a few times in alarm and then starts to growl. Soon Tom is shaking and groaning as if there is something terrible inside of him. Violently his arms shake, his teeth gnash, and there comes a growling groan that tears from deep within his gut. He screams. Toad barks until Ned and Josh drop down beside him and hold his arms. But Tom writhes and turns and tries to break free. Toad growls and squats in front of Tom. "This is not going well. She done been down a pretty while." "Too long," Ned says. And as Tom settles once more, they peer out. The water where Ellie dived begins to move noisily. At first it is just a few ominous bubbles that break in blips on the surface, but quickly it grows, and there is a deep swirling, turning and churning up of a vortex till a sparkling foam rises, then bubbles and brings up all that is below. Tom cries out again, and deep voices screech and break from his mouth in a confusion of dark and twisted chaos. The water surface breaks in a crash of light. Ellie rises up, kicking with a great gasp, and in her hand, held aloft, is the deep red bloodstone. It shines and burns brilliantly as the moonmoths separate and swirl around her arm in a twirling flurry of light that pulls her up. The sinister voices scream hysterically from within Tom's body. Toad barks and jumps about in a panic. The voices shake Tom and his head is lifted in a sudden twist. His mouth is prized open and his face stretches up in a great howling. Toad sits with a despairing whine. The voices screech and then escape. They stream out as dense wisps of fizzing mist and fly off. They leave, trailing a faint scent of sulphur as they fade away and are gone. Toad shares 3 happy little yelps, as if he has sent the voices off himself. "She did it! She did it!" Ned says. And a smile breaks out across Joshua's face as Ellie throws herself onto the bank and gasps and reclaims the air. Tom sits up and recovers. He stares at them and yawns, his eyes wide in wonder. There is a final echoing belch that bursts from the chasm of his mouth, and the last misty wisp splutters out and disappears. "Ooh, that be smelling something awful," Josh says. "Oh, sorry," Tom apologizes, sniffs the air. Then in his quiet, normal voice, he adds, "Was that me?" And he laughs. Toad approaches Tom warily and licks his hand, sniffs him a few times for good measure, and knows there is no longer anything to fear. There on the bank, as Tom is waking up to see a soaked Eleisa climb out of the pool, Ned laughs with relief, and Eleisa smiles. "So, what are we doing here?" Tom asks. "You've been having some kind of a strange experience, Tom," Ned suggests. "But he's back now," Ellie says. It is then that she hands Tom the stone, and it is at that moment that it floods him with light, so that he actually glows, and his eyes are bright and blue and beautiful once more. Back to life," she adds. "But you's done nearly come a cropper," Josh says, looking at Eleisa. "It was a lot deeper than I thought," she admits. "If the Moonmoths hadn't shown me the way, I think I might have been floating to the surface." Eleisa is still breathing heavily. She stares out at the water. "Did you see him? I saw Maester Brown. He was there beside me at one point." They turn their heads to the water. Its surface is calm once more. The children pace around and scan the darkness anxiously. The moonmoths fly off and begin to sweep low over the gentle ripples. Their delicate fluttering once more brings a calm peace to the air, and they circle around each other, moving across the pool. It takes them a few moments. Once or twice they hover over an area, but move on until they dance together in a single spot, circling. Below them, in the water, a faint purple light appears. There is a flick of a fin and a gentle splosh as it rises. A bubble glurps to the surface, as if to announce Maester Brown's presence. "There, look!" cries Eleisa, "and he is shining again like before, as if his colour had never left him." She is right. The fish moves slowly just under the water, a vibrant light that stealthily cuts through the darkness. He curves on a current and glides his way towards them. The ugly yellow-grey scales have fallen away from his sides, and as he moves, the purple light shines with a fresh vitality and a glowing intensity. Nearer and nearer he comes. "Oh, it be the plumfish! How he be clept at home, I seen him plenty. He do even talk to the sheep when they drink." Toad trots up to Josh and waggles his bottom a few times. Maester Brown swims back and forth as if delighted to entertain the children with a display of his fine new scales. He shimmers and glows in waves of purple shining, like a living form of amethyst, liquid and spectacular. His wide mouth opens and closes as if he grins and gapes at the same time, and the barbels, that look more than ever like whiskers, twinkle. They don't hear the movement, the silent placement of the bolt in the rest, nor the pulling of the string to the stopping place that makes its owner's heart beat fast, nor the soft, tense breathing of that person who stands only 10 paces away from them, invisibly draped in a dark hood and cape. Toad hears nothing in his deaf ear, but they hear the click. They hear the sudden brief swish of the noise of something in flight, something that sounds like a deathly bolt hitting a target. And they hear the feet of someone running rapidly away, pounding heedlessly through the forest, smashing the plants and crashing through the undergrowth, loud and shocking at first, then getting fainter and fainter, just like the pulse in the body of the target that same person has hit. The gasp from Eleisa sets Toad off too late. His barking raises a futile alarm, and Josh rushes to pacify him. The children look around, suddenly aware of the attack. Tom sees the crossbow bolt first. He only knows one person in the whole valley who boasts of owning a crossbow. He uses it to knock squirrels from trees or intimidate people riding in their carts on the more secluded bends of tracks. Too often folk are riding along in silence, peacefully going about their day's business, only to find a bolt suddenly embed itself in the wooden sides of their vehicle with a sharp "fdum." For too long the people of Ferndale, Greendale and Cloverdale have turned a blind eye to the wicked games of Alaric Haug, who hangs the bodies of his kill in the trees as if to mark his pernicious territory. A squirrel here, "fdum," a maggot pie there, "fdum," and even a duckling once. "Fdum." The children are stunned into silence. They look out to where the bolt has found its target. There is something lying there. Motionless, it floats on the surface as the water ripples in delicate broken lines of moonlight. It moves as the water gently cradles the lifeless form that now floats there. Overhead, the moonmoths slow, drift in a sweeping arc back and forth as the light from their lime green wings dims. but it is enough just to illuminate below them the body of Maester Brown. The plumfish is dead.